What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazik, aka Unique Mazik. I am the hardest working man in sports and gaming, and I'm talking WWE 2K22 again. And this time, I want to talk about my hands-on experience with MyGM. Got a chance to get a early build and got an opportunity to test the game out. In the process of actually testing MyGM, which was that and Play Now were the only two modes that were available in the build process of doing that, and like I said, I got an opportunity to look at the gameplay as well. So there's a time and I want to do a separate video to talk about gameplay. Right now, I just want to talk about my GM. I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, and the bottom line of my experience. Now, I will say I had about 2 hours to play, so I spent some of that time going through a tutorial with the gameplay, which is led by Drew Gulak, which is pretty cool. He's a funny character. Um, Graphics and stuff kind of jump out at you initially. So once I got into actually dealing with my GM, there's some pluses and some minuses there, right? So let's start with the good. I always like to begin things positively. So the first thing is the draft structure that incorporates salary, budget, face heels, wrestling styles, all of that is to me a definite move in the right direction. It feels almost like a fantasy draft in a franchise mode for like Madden or 2K or something like that, where you're getting to like pick your team and your roster. And as I mentioned, certain the different superstars have different salary requirements or whatever, so they eat up your budget. So if you try to go too heavy on mega stars, then you will have a much lighter roster, and you won't have as many variations and options when it comes to trying to book your matches and your shows. So I thought that was pretty cool the way they did that. I also like the fact that the rosters that you are given are kind of random at first. So you will not have, when you do your draft for your brand, you will not have just free reign of the entire roster, and it's randomized who's going to be in it. So I kind of like that to a degree. I think that that is pretty cool. The second thing that I like is the promo and match setup overall are a sound structure to building a show. Now, there is something about the promo specifically that I do not like, and I'm going to get into that in the bad. But as far as just for this section, just the whole fact that you have to set up promos and you have to set up matches and there's a structure to your show, I like that. Third thing I like is the ability to spectate matches and to watch from multiple camera angles. I think that is great. It adds a really nice element to just experiencing my GM, right? It could be, I think, something that's a really big hit with content creators because you could do some different kinds of things with views from other parts of the arena. So I like that a lot. Another thing that I like is I like being able to sign legends and like even jobbers to contracts after you've started your MyGM journey. So the part I'm not sure about is whether or not you start off your MyGM and say for instance you don't get access to Roman Reigns, which I did not get access to Roman Reigns in my first MyGM. I'm wondering at some point, does he become a free agent? Because he wasn't a free agent at first. So I don't know about that. So if he's never like available at all over whatever your time period, which the all of the MyGM experiences run either 15, 25, or 50 weeks. If he never is like a part of it, then I won't like that. So I'm not exactly sure how that part works. I'll check in for more information. But I do like the fact that you can sign legends and jobbers and people like that, and even you know members of the current roster who are didn't weren't a part of your initial draft. I like that. Felt like that whole thing is just moving in the right direction. So now let's talk about the bad. For me, there are just too many limitations with roster size for the brands and the titles. So like I said, your roster, you can put as many people on your roster that you can fit under the budget, but it still feels like you got a real thin roster just overall. Even more thin to me is the titles. You can only have two titles per brand, and it's a men and a women's championship, and it just doesn't feel very professional wrestling in my personal opinion. Um, just doesn't, like I said, doesn't feel like you're running a WWE brand or any professional wrestling brand at all. Next one. There is, to me, a lack of presentation when it comes to the promos. So I mentioned there was something about the promos that I don't like, and this is it. It's almost like they're non-existent. Like, so you click the button to say do the promo, and your promo runs, so to speak, but you don't see anything. But the promo gets graded, and they're like, okay, John Cena cut a decent promo, and it's like, I forget the star rating or whatever, like 2-3 stars or whatever, or 5 stars. And there's no like visual payoff. There's no nothing. There's not even like audience applause or boos to say anything. It's just like this simulated concept. And we're talking about a promo, which is one of the biggest parts of the showpiece of professional wrestling. And I just didn't feel that it was accurately represented. And I know this is not an easy thing to do, right? Because if you just show like 1 or 2 videos, people are going to get tired of seeing the 1 or 2 videos. So how do you do this and add some level of intelligent presentation to it that won't get ho-hum after the first 2 or 3 times you see it? I don't necessarily have the answer to that question. All I know is I did not feel satiated with the way that the promos were represented in WWE 2K22 and MyGM. The next thing that I do not like is that 15, 25, and 50 week experience. It just feels kind of limited to me. If you do happen to really kind of get into MyGM, I'm thinking it's going to be a bummer to have it end in, 15, 25, or 50 weeks. You're probably going to want to kind of keep going. So it just kind of makes you scratch your head overall about the way that runs. So those are my biggest things that I don't like. So my bottom line takeaways after assessing the good and the bad that I was able to take in from my 2 hours of playing is that it feels like this is a foundational year for MyGM as 2K is related, WWE 2K. The developers here in this situation are kind of tasked with making MyGM a different experience from Universe. Now, I haven't had hands-on time with Universe just yet, but it appears that mode might be the better fit for me personally because I'm looking for like this sandbox experience where I can create my own everything. I want to go all out with it. And MyGM just kind of has too many limitations for that. And it does feel a little bit like the NBA 2K versions of this where you have My NBA, you could just do whatever you want. You can change all kinds of things. MyGM, you can change some stuff, but there's far more restrictions. And you just kind of wonder, are the restrictions gamifying it, or are they just adding an unnecessary level of restraint? I'm not even totally sure. All I know is that as it is right now, I'm feeling like, okay, we got some good bones here, but we need some more meat on this whole MyGM plate so that we can kind of flesh this out and then ultimately make this whole mode a full-time player. That's my take for it. I appreciate you watching as always. God bless and peace.